So continuing my series of talking about older books, I'm now going to discuss this series of 2 books called Czech, a multi-level course for advanced learners. It's from Masaryk University in Brno, and it was published in 2003. I believe it's now out of print, but these are the authors: František Čermák, Jan Holob, and so on. Each of those authors seems to have contributed something different to the books. So it's been, in a way, a bit of a mishmash, with each of them trying to give the book a different focus. And I think this has harmed the books, at least in the first volume. The second volume's a different story altogether. I think it's wonderful. But the first volume starts out well enough. Let's just choose a chapter at random here. This lesson 4 is talking about sentences denoting locations. So the first one, synovery, so ve škole, sons are in school, or Praha je v Československu, and so on. Klíče mám v kapse, I have the keys in my pocket. It's a bit, the sentences are a bit short, they're not particularly related to each other, but at least it's getting a concept across to do with locations, and that might be fine. But obviously a different author then got involved, and they've started to try to throw in some very academic stuff, things from linguistics that probably aren't so interesting to the average learner. So it has morphosyntactic patterns, M, N, nom, VF3, prep N, VF123, morphemic structure of prep N. I have no idea what those things are, and I have no interest in what they are. So I skip over a lot of what's in here. There are a few nuggets in here, a few good things, but all the other academic stuff just gets in the way, really. So if you buy this volume, if you buy these books, you don't even need the first volume, unless you're particularly interested in all that linguistic terminology. The second volume is where the gold is. Now, if we look at this, it's a whole different thing. Unlike most books, this one focuses on realistic narratives using real language, not just artificial language. And it usually has, in each chapter, 5 or so conversations between family members or friends, and they're very realistic ones in realistic settings. So in this chapter 4 again, the one that we just looked at, here's the chapter 4 in the second volume, and the first discussion, a short one, hledání, which means searching. So, well, I'll read it. It's a woman, Elena, is leaving work, and she's searching nervously in her purse, and her friend is watching her. So I'll read it and then I'll say what it's about. So, kamarádka, co hledáš, Aleno? Alena, peníze jsou pryč, nemám je v kabelce ani v plášti. Kamarádka, nenechala jsi je nahoře v kanceláři. Alena, podívám se, počkáš chvilku. So what's happened there is, what you're looking for, Alena, my money, it's gone, it isn't in my handbag or in my coat. Well, didn't you leave it upstairs in the office? I'll go look. Will you wait for me? So she goes away and have a look, and it says, nejsou tam, někde jsem je ztratila, ale kde? Kamarádka, to zjistíme. Kde jsi byla? Jenom na obědě v závodní jídelně. So, it isn't there. I must have lost it, but where? We'll work it out, we'll ascertain it. Where have you been? Only for lunch in the company canteen. Then the friend says, nekupovali si něco? Oh, didn't you buy something? Alena, počkej, ano, byla jsem v tom obchodě na rohu, měli pomeranče. So I was in that shop on the corner. They had oranges. Well, I don't know if oranges were so rare in 1993, but I know that in communist times that would have been really big news. Zapomněl jsem peněženku u pokladny. I forgot my purse at the cash register, kamarádka. Tak vidíš, jdeme tam. So you see, we'll go there. And then at the end of it, it tells you the new words that it introduced in there. So kamarádka is friend, závodní jídelně is the canteen, and so on. It has 6 of these in this chapter. Yes, 6, that's pretty typical. And then after these, so there's another one. Honza se vrací, so Honza returns. And it's about his return home to... and he's being shouted at by his mother, which is quite nice. And then after these, in each chapter, there's a more traditional article that you'd find in a magazine. So where does the king live in this case? And again, more vocabulary. And in fact, all the vocabulary across these chapters is repeated in a special section at the end, which spans about 100 pages. And I would say there maybe introduce 4,000 or 5,000 new words, which is extremely substantial compared to a typical textbook. And then, so you can read this like a native reader, a graded reader, where it gets more and more difficult throughout the text as you learn more. So you're learning through something realistic rather than dull text, just a dull lessons in a textbook. And then, importantly, after you've read each chapter, maybe a few times, it has questions relating to each of the things you've read. So that little story there, Hledání, has here 16 questions you're supposed to ask. And the first one there is you're supposed to say, je to pravda, is it true? To není pravda, it is false, or to nevíme, we don't know. So the first question is actually a statement, Alena byla v práci. Is Alena in work? And the way I used to work with this book was to say something like, ano, to je pravda, yes, that is true. And then on a later pass, you would give a more comprehensive answer, perhaps. So you would say what she's doing at work, or in this case, it actually says that she has left work. So I would say something like, ano, je to pravda, ale jen do určité míry. Yes, that's true, but only up to a certain point. Protože podle článku Alena je před budovou. She's in front of the building. And you see, you can then elaborate and give more answers, so it's more to do with comprehension and then building up your own progressively comprehensive answers. In fact, yes, this is right. The very last question in each chapter, I'm not sure if you can see that, it says to retell the story article in this one, which was about where does the king live, it says retell that story using your own words and maybe with different characters in a different setting. So it gets you used to absorbing things and also producing things. I think it's a beautiful supplement to the more traditional textbook style of learning and gets you well prepared for dealing with native materials. So get it if you can, particularly the second volume.